PST. Today's in-depth is with Justin Dyson. Hey, Justin, how you doing?
What's up, Danny? How you doing? Doing all right.
Good. Before we dip into your history, just quickly, I'm going to share to the groups. Would you mind just giving a little bit of an update what you've been up to this week or so?
Sure. I mean, it's business as usual, I suppose. We've been launching new products or about to launch new products. We finally got some inventory in. I'm sure like everybody right now, logistics are a nightmare. So trying to get stuff into Amazon. We have some things that have taken, 40 plus days to get there, but it's finally rolling in. So we're building momentum, trying to continue to scale and still grow the business. Personally, I've got a few other things going on. So I started woodworking not too long ago. My grandpa, he's moving. So he just gave me his entire wood shop of tools. So basically I've been doing that kind of as a hobby and trying to fill my personal time with that, along with the kids and the wife and sports and things like that. So always busy, but definitely enjoying life.
It sounds like it. So suddenly you're able to be Geppetto and run close to an 8-figure business. So
yeah,
it's like you're a machine. So do you work out and stuff? So you're pretty much on it. You've got good health and long hours.
Yeah, I'm actually, so because of COVID, it's been difficult to go to the gym, obviously. So I started building one in my workshop. So I got a little section for that. I actually worked out there this morning. So just got a rig that finally came in. Gonna put that together this weekend. And so I'll be self-sufficient. I never have to leave the house. Just need to get groceries delivered. So
sounds good. Cool. Right. Let's take it right way back to your childhood. Tell me about some earliest memories pertaining to, were you is your family a family of entrepreneurs? Did you get the bug early, etc.?
Sure. So it's kind of funny. I would normally tell you no. But when someone asked me this question a couple of years ago, and I was thinking back and I was like, well, actually they kind of were. So my dad, he worked for a company, pulling cable, doing telecommunications work and things like that. Unfortunately, the owner of that company died. And when that happened, the new owners came in, wiped everybody out. So he started his own thing. And this was when I was probably 10, maybe 9, 10. And my mom, she always did. She actually worked for FINA back when that was around. And it might still be around. I don't know. It's not in Dallas anymore. But she worked for them. And then she started doing her own thing later on as well when we ended up moving to Rowlett, which is a small town near Dallas. But yeah, so looking back, I wouldn't have considered it entrepreneurial, but I guess it kind of was. So my dad started his own company and he did that for over 10 years. I ended up actually working for him later on. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we kind of did, but I wouldn't say I was entrepreneurial at the time. I certainly had ambition. I certainly wanted to do more. I wanted to, have more. I just wanted to be different. I didn't want to be like everybody else. Everyone else seemed kind of miserable. So I wanted to do something, but I wouldn't have pinpointed that as being entrepreneurial. It was really, I wanted to have what everyone had, but I wanted to do it without having to sacrifice things that I wanted to do.
Yeah. So was education-wise, school in your formative years, did you enjoy it? Was there anything you could take away from that?
I did enjoy it, I guess. I was a pretty good student. I went, grade school, went through high school. I didn't actually go to college till I was 23, and then I ended up dropping out because I started selling on Amazon. But, I had good grades. And I just like people. I like being around people. So it was more of a social experiment, especially in high school. More so than I was there for education. Ended up actually dropping all of my honors classes or whatever you guys call them in the UK, just so I could hang out and not have to work hard. It was I was being lazy essentially. But
you was using your brain,
yeah.
So job wise, what was like your first few jobs that you were doing as a kid? Did you one of these guys who'd done like newspaper round, wash cars, that kind of thing early on?
Sure. I think the earliest thing I did, I was probably 12 or so. And me and a buddy of mine, we took his dad's lawnmower and weed eater and just walked around the neighborhood asking people if we could mow lawns. So I guess that was my paper route thing that I had, but I didn't have my first job. I think I was 16 when I got my first job working at Circuit City. I was basically I don't even know what you call it, a clerk, freaking check people out and walked around and stocked the aisles with CDs back when those were still around. So I did that. Yeah. And I was a lifeguard as well. So I did that one summer. That was actually a lot of fun because it was like the summer it rained so much that I never actually had to work. We just got to play around at the water park. Yeah. And then when I was
So were you
18,
running around in little red shorts? Were you like David
I
Hasselhoff?
was, I was, yep, it sure
Yeah.
was. It was a little neighborhood pool, so it was really small, but it was a lot of fun. All my friends worked there, so it was good times.
So took me through senior school. What was the stuff that you were interested there? Did you study the things that you went on to use, or?
Not really. I mean, in high school, you're not really given a choice. Like these are the things you can take, and you have to take one of them. So I took, whatever was available to me. I was decent at math. I was actually better at reading or English, whatever, which I didn't actually enjoy. So it was kind of an odd deal. But I didn't really say I wouldn't use it or I didn't use it. Everything after algebra was kind of a waste. I don't think I've used any of that since then. Maybe a little bit of geometry. But other than that, after high school, I did go to college for mobile development, basically developing iPhone apps, Android apps. Did that for a little bit. And I did use quite a bit of that, now and during Amazon and things like that. But it was all of the off-topic stuff. So all of the development pieces, I didn't use any of that. But learning how to use Photoshop, Illustrator, actually research.
Did you learn to program, and you were programming these apps, but you just don't use it now, is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So philosophy on life, like from young, you said you wanted to be a bit different. You see what people were doing. You were saying is that you didn't want to do all the stuff they wanted to do. You wanted to chill and everything else. So back then, what was the philosophy for you? Because obviously that is quite different in the sense that, you defined yourself that you wanted to, not stand out, but you wanted to be different from the pack. But
Exactly.
What was your whys behind it?
It's interesting because I'm definitely not the same person I was then. I'm definitely a lot more confident than I am now. So at the time, like it's kind of hard to think back. I was talking to my brother-in-law about this the other day, actually. I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. I know I wanted to be different, but like you said, I didn't actually want to stand out. I didn't really want to be noticed because that, brings scrutiny, and I didn't like that. So just mentally, I just wanted to have, I don't know, man. It's really hard because when I think back on how I thought, it's kind of embarrassing. Like I was very limited in my thinking. And my first, I call him my first coach. He really wasn't trying to be my coach at the time. But my brother-in-law, I had breakfast with him for almost 3 years, once a week. And he really is the one who taught me to, if you want to have these things, you want to do these things and, be this person, all it really takes is Google and just the willpower to, take those steps forward. But prior to that, I really didn't have that. I was just going to do what needed to be done. I got married early. I got married at 18. I had my first son at 19. And so like I lost a lot of that ambition, and I lost a lot of not so much the desire to change and to do things, but I didn't know how. I really had no clue. I was 19, I was a kid. And so I just got a regular job, and I just did what everyone else does. So it was really depressing, actually. I went from, wanting to stand out and be different, not stand out, but, be different and, have this, super awesome life, to literally joining the pack and doing what everyone else was doing.
So what was these jobs? So it sounds a bit soul destroying, but the thing is, you're still with Channing now, right? So
yeah,
you've got 2 kids. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so how old are you now?
I'm 30. Yeah, I just turned 30.
Yeah. So 11 years. No, it is. It's young. I mean, I've been with my wife since I was 19 as well, but I'm a lot older than you. But you're right. You go through all these different passages, and you kind of find your way. So where do you think, the kind of jobs, what were you doing back then? Like you say, dead end jobs, or they're not the jobs that you want. What were you doing?
Sure. So backing up a little further than that. So I graduated high school, and, everyone or your counselor in high school, like, hey, what do you want to do with your life? And at the time I was like, dude, I want to go to parties and hang out with my friends. I don't want to get a job. So I decided I was going to be a firefighter because, they work 24 hours and they're off for 2 days. It's like, perfect. With that type of career, I can, have steady income, but I can also do something on the side to actually create wealth. And then we got pregnant with my oldest son, so all that went out the window. I actually did. I graduated fire academy. I got my certification as an EMT, and at that time I was 19. But where I live, they basically didn't allow you to become a firefighter until you're 21, which is a new law, or wasn't even a law. It was just a new policy that they implemented for a few years. So I had to go get a job. So what I ended up doing is I worked in construction, which, as you can imagine, is incredibly awful.
Yeah, I know. I used to run a French polishing company for about 8 years, so I know it's like. Not that I was on the tools; I run the back end, so it's not fun. And I've done labouring, and that it's horrible.
Yeah, no, I kid you not. So it was actually for an electrical company, and it was my roommate in Fire Academy. It was his father-in-law's company, and I kid you not, on the first day, I was literally digging holes, trenches with a shovel, and I was like, "This has got to be a joke. What happened?" So I did that for about a year, and at that time, I ended up going and working for my father-in-law after that, and I actually stayed working with him for 4 years. And I've never really talked about it with anybody, but that whole thing kind of blew up at one point. So I worked for my father-in-law. My brother-in-law also worked there. They were both owners in that company. And after about 4 years, mind you, this company is very simple operations. We sold essentially expensive shampoo to licensed cosmetologists. So we're a wholesaler for like L'Oreal USA, big companies like that. And I worked there for about 4 years. Long story short, big falling out. I ended up quitting. Actually quit, I think, on our 5th anniversary. It was literally the day of our anniversary, and I quit. And that was kind of the start of what kind of thrust me into where I am now. So that seemingly really awful experience, I quit. A week later, my father-in-law fired my brother-in-law, sued him to take control of the company, and we were in lawsuits for the next 2 years with that whole side of the family, which has been obviously a lot of fun. And after that, I didn't really have any jobs since then. So I was in college. I had started to go back to college. So I was doing that. And I did work part-time with my dad after I quit. I needed money. So my dad was doing telecommunications work, which isn't construction, but it's manual labor. So it's kind of going back, in that direction. And so, yeah, I think the working for my dad was the last job I actually had. And around that same time, I'd found ASM. I'd gone through that. And
so do you mind if we put a bit of a timeline to it? So let's wind back to you're 30 now, 19, you got married, you were working with your brother-in-law and your father-in-law.
Yep.
And there was the big fallout there. What year was that? Sorry.
I think I was either 23 or 24. So it would have been 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
Probably 2013, I think, actually. So maybe it was our 4th anniversary.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so you early doors on ASM. I mean, that's a big jump because most people fiddle around with various little businesses, gain some sets of skills in certain areas, piece them together, and then they get to Amazon. Does that make sense? Like someone's good at PPC, they were good at AdWords, and some were good at branding or product sourcing for a larger company that they work for. You've done all this kind of construction thing. Oh, we skipped the apps. Talk to me. You know where the apps were? What was that, pre or post you were doing the apps?
During. So as I was working for my father-in-law, I started going back to college and learning that. I was doing it online. So I think I was in college for about a year when everything kind of fell out. And so the only reason I even did that is like, I was kind of capped at that, working for my father-in-law. I could only make so much. I think I was making like 45 grand a year. And the only way to move up is to be an owner. Well, there's already 2 owners and they're both going to live for a long time. So I kind of realized, like, if I'm going to ever progress and move on with life, I need to do something else. So went to college, learned mobile development to actually create my own apps and, sell those in the app store. And that's how I was going to make all my money. So I did that at the same time that I was working for my father-in-law. And then I continued to do that for a little while after I quit working there. And even when I was working for my dad. And so all of this is over the span of, 2013, 2014, yeah, because ASM 4 was 2014, I believe, October of 2014. So I had quit in April or March, rather. Sorry, I know my anniversary. March of 2000.
Sorry, Channing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? March of 2014 is when I quit. I'm still going to college with my for mobile development. Then I went to work with my dad for about 6 months to a year, and that's when ASM stumbled upon that. I'd always been reading books, right? I do like to read. Personal development, something I try to do every day, whether that's
let's talk books. Where did that journey begin with the personal development? What was the couple of the standout books back then?
Sure. So the first book I ever read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty common.
that's my all-time favorite book. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one for sure. And I've read dozens of books. I can only think of the ones I've read recently, but back in the day, I ended up reading like 4 or 5 of his books, like back to back to back. And then I got into audiobooks. So I started, listening to those, some John Maxwell books on just leadership. I even had to read books on like creating boundaries. I was really weak in that regard. And
Yeah.
I don't feel like I was being taken advantage of, but I just didn't speak up for myself.
Yeah.
And so a lot of books, related to that, building, better habits, especially now that, I have this company, like building habits is ever more important. But yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that stands out besides all the Robert Kiyosaki
That's
books.
interesting. You're saying boundaries. That is key. The problem is when you start to set boundaries, it can upset people because they're used to permeating the boundaries that they have. Whether that's they're using what's the word for it? Go for the sympathy vote and that kind of stuff, and pull on your heartstrings for favors and stuff like that. But then you get to that time when you go, no, that's it. That actually has, in a short term and maybe the long term, it can have a negative effect. So it's not always to set boundaries. It's how you structure those boundaries.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I read those books and I didn't make a lot of progress there. It's been hard, and I still struggle with that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that I think is important for just anyone to undergo. My wife, Channing, she excelled in that regard. She used to be the same way. She was just like a yes person, and she excels at that way better than I do. So if I need to say no to something, I usually say, "Hey, can you help me out with this?"
Get Channing on there. Yeah.
Yep. And she's much more, I don't know if assertive is the right word, but she's much more, or she's a lot better at doing that and handling people than I am.
Yeah. No, she's very good with people.
Yeah.
Let's talk Channing. So in and around that time, because I think you two are working more closer together. And from my understanding from a little while ago, she's just retired. She had the salon, right? And now she's retired. So what's that?
So that's why my hair's so long. I can't get a haircut anymore.
Yeah. So basically she had when did Channing set up? Because I want to integrate both of these stories here, because you've grown up together. You're very young. You had children young. And like you said, you've made it's a big paradigm shift from what you did to where you've reached now. What was going on around that time with Channing? Because was she home with the children and then went to salon as the kids were growing up? Because obviously you're saying that you're working manual labor, maybe money's a bit tight in around that time. There's the issues with the family. Where is it with the salon with Channing? Because she's, as I said, congratulations, Channing. You just retired like recently. Yeah. Where does that weave into the story?
So unlike myself, Channing knew like exactly what she wanted to do by the time she was like 5. So like her mom was a hairstylist, her grandmother was a hairstylist, her sister-in-law was a hairstylist, and I think her aunt was a hairstylist. So, and her dad and her grandfather before him owned this distribution company to sell to hairstylists. So it's just this big family deal. So she knew, from the time she was really young that she was going to cut hair, color hair, whatever. And so she actually started doing that at 17. She dropped out of high school, got her GED, and then just started her career. So she actually got like a full head start before I did, just working on her career. So she actually cut hair for over 10 years. And so she never stopped. Whenever we had, Dash, our oldest, she took off for, I think, 2 weeks. When we had Briggs, I think she took off for a week, and she had C-sections with both. So like she's just not, she gets bored real easy. So like she didn't really want to sit at home and do nothing. Nothing wrong with that. But so by the time she was 17, I think she had got done with hair school. By the time she was 18, she started doing that, and she worked at her mom's salon. So like her mom owned the salon before we did. Same salon, same people for the most part, or some of the same people. And so she was doing that. So this whole time she's at the salon. And honestly, that's the only reason, I could afford ASM. We could afford college.
This is what I was going to say. Did you get to the stage where you had a steady income coming in with Chen?
Yeah.
Like she backed you to go and hit the ground running with the Amazon business?
Unwillingly at first, but yeah. So it's funny because, she made more than me for the first 8 years of our marriage, I think, or not 8, maybe longer, 10 years, something like that, 9 years. And, a lot of men, they don't like that. They feel like inferior or whatever. But like, if it wasn't for that, then nothing that, we've accomplished now would have even been possible. So like, and that was the agreement we made. So she was cutting hair. She's doing really well. You can make 6 figures cutting hair. Most people, frown upon it like, oh, you're a beauty school dropout type of deal. My wife kicked ass, and she brought in a lot of money, and that allowed us to, we lived, well below our means. We lived in this tiny 1,200 square foot, wasn't even 1,200 square foot. It was this little townhome. It's like a duplex. And we lived there. We had Dash at the time. And when ASM, finally came around and I told her I wanted to do that, we essentially made a pact. I would figure out how this business worked and I would get it up and running so that one day she could quit and she wouldn't have to work anymore. Because whenever I quit working for my father-in-law, and I also ended up quitting working for my dad, and I dropped out of college, when all that kind of converged at the same time, she ended up putting in even more hours. She was working probably, I don't know, 50, 60 hours a week. She'd start at 8 a.m., get home at 8 p.m. Mind you, again, I'm at home, I'm doing college online, and I'm also doing ASM. So everything's at home. So I could take care of Dash while she was at work, but she was getting burnt out. So she's making really good money, but at the same time, she was working a ton, and it was eventually going to burn her out. So luckily, the first 6 months, selling on Amazon wasn't very good. And the next 6 months got a little bit.
Let's talk about this. Back up. Let's talk about the course. Like, when you first started ASM, we're talking back in the gold rush time where it's a lot easier on Amazon there's more restrictions now than there was back then, especially pertaining to reviews and stuff like that. What's the first experiences there? So you took the course, is that like, right, it's game over? Or did you get like really excited because you're like, right, I think I found it, and then you put your head down?
Yeah, I was super excited, and like, it was a lot of money. I mean, I think at the time it was still $3,500 or something like that for the course. And it was a lot of money. We didn't really have a lot saved up. We had some, but we didn't have a ton. And so like, I didn't really have a choice. And I think there's really 2 main things that drove me. One, I had to make it work. Like I literally put like a lot of our savings into, buying that course, knowing that I'm gonna have to buy inventory, knowing that there's other expenses that honestly didn't know what they would be yet, but I knew there was money there. And then also just on a completely personal level, like, the whole falling out with my father-in-law, we were still in lawsuits. We were still going through all that. It was really hard because I worked for her dad, she worked for her mom, and we were both getting 2 different stories. They were all in lawsuits together. It was a freaking nightmare. So it was really hard in our marriage and at the time. And so I have this motivation to like really just say fuck off to my father-in-law. So that really motivated me.
Plus there's a big boundary you set there.
Yeah. So, being motivated by that, motivated by the fact that I have to make this work. I've literally just told my wife that I'll make it work. And we made a deal saying that this is how we're going to, be able to have her stop working as much because it was becoming overwhelming. And obviously, just as a man, like, I'm not contributing. I'm literally doing nothing. It was awful to be hitting your head against the wall, regardless of whether it was, working for someone else, going to college, or, doing ASM or Amazon. Like, I wasn't producing at the level that I knew I could produce at. And it was just mentally draining. But it also drove me a lot. I do whatever I needed to do to make shit happen.
Your back's against the wall and like there's no way out, and that's the best place to be in order to get those results, because there's no safety net.
No,
that's it. It's shit or bust. You just got to go for it.
Yeah, and we did bust. I mean, the first product.
Let's talk about that, because it don't matter now because you're on your way to 8 figures. But let's talk about the bust bit. Let's walk through that. What was your darkest hour there?
Yeah, so it was kind of a combination of factors, right? Took ASM, found a product. I was like, man, it's a great opportunity. At the time, things weren't as competitive. So the markets being oversaturated wasn't as common. But needless to say, everyone and their mother picked iPhone cases to be, their first product. You had incredible margins. You could buy it for $1, sell it for 20 or more. Just huge margins, high demand, and it was going to be this, big winner. So ended up coming out with those. I didn't actually know how to launch a product. I don't think product launches are a big thing. You had things like Zon Blast, but I was like, I don't have the money for that, so I didn't go that route. I just turned on PPC and got like 2 sales a month. So it was really great, let me tell you. At 1,000 units, I was getting like 2 to 5 sales a month maybe. And after about 6 months, after 6 months. So for the next 6 months, I literally was just trying to figure out how the hell do I get this stuff to sell, because it just wasn't moving. I was taking other courses. There was stuff by Ezra Firestone that I was taking, like how to advertise on Pinterest. There was, oh gosh, I can't even remember. There's several other things. I was learning about Shopify. I think I'd already set up a Shopify store at this point, just trying all these things, literally throwing shit against the wall to see what would stick. And nothing ever did. And eventually, about 6 months later, we got an infringement complaint from, what was the name of the company? They're big. It wasn't SpyGen. I can't remember the name of it might have been SpyGen. We were using their trademark. They had trademarked a phrase on there for one of their products, and we were using it on our packaging. And so I got hit with that, and I was like, oh shit, I have to bring all this product back, repackage it, or figure something out. So needless to say, I ended up destroying all the inventory. So I kind of skipped over a part. Probably a month or so prior, we did decide to launch just a completely different product in a different niche, because obviously the iPhone cases weren't working out. So that was going, and we were actually selling at least 2 or 3 products a day with that product, and what we're still selling maybe 5 a month with the cell phone cases. And
Mate,
so
I ask you in that point, because obviously Jennings out working puts all the stress on the family. You're going through 6 months, not a month, 6 months of a product that's selling 2 units a day. You're scratching your head. It must have been quite a stressful time, because you know that you got the savings there. Jennings out to work. You got Dash at home.
Yeah.
Explain to me how that felt at that time.
I've got to give Channing some credit here, because I don't actually remember a time where she put me down because of it. No. And I didn't realize how important that was then, but I definitely do now, because like I don't know if I would say I was at my breaking point, but I was incredibly frustrated. I wasn't angry, but I was just unhappy. I mean, I could not figure out why I couldn't get these things to sell, regardless of what it was. And it was infuriating. And again, just going back to that, I'm not producing. I'm not even being able to take care of my own family. And it was hard. It really was. But at the same time, it's kind of what pushes you through, and it's what makes you want
where you are today. So we're on the second product, right? This is moving a little bit faster. What was the learnings from the first product that you went into the second?
Yeah, so the big takeaway from the first was, one, I realized I couldn't actually afford to launch a cell phone case, right? It was to compete, you have to sell hundreds of thousands of units a month. Couldn't sell more than 5. So I ended up going all the way back. I didn't even go back through the training. I never actually finished ASM, to be honest. And I went back. Me and Channing were actually on vacation. I don't actually remember how we afforded it. I don't know if we paid for it or, someone else did. But we were on vacation. At this point, she was pregnant again with Briggs. So she's about 10 to 12 weeks pregnant. We just found out she's got a blood clot. I can't remember exactly how that anatomy works, but this blood clot, we thought we weren't even going to be able to go on vacation. They said it was fine, whatever. So we went. So we got that stress going on, and then we're having a baby on top of that, and I still am not making any money. So needless to say, I let Channing pick the next product, and she was like, hey, I'm seeing a lot of my friends buy this stuff. Maybe you should see if you can make these. And so I kind of ran it through the ASM criteria again. I was like, it checks out. The key difference, though, and the big differentiating factor between the iPhone cases and this new niche was, there was not near as much competition. There was maybe 2 or 3 people selling this product, as opposed to 2,000 or 3,000 or more with the iPhone cases. So I was like, okay, there's a chance with this one, because I don't have to compete with a bunch of people, and I can figure out the rest of what I don't know on this product. So I was very fortunate. So mind you, I'd already destroyed that inventory, right? So all that iPhone cases, like all that money's gone. So I ended up finding a supplier on Alibaba, just like everybody else for the most part, who let me purchase stock inventory. So what we did with this first product is instead of having to order, 500 units or 1,000, I ordered like 25. And it was products I think it ordered 5 units of 5 different patterns or something like that. I ordered that. They shipped it to me. I stuck a sticker on it. That was my label. That was my logo. And I sent it off to Amazon. And so that product started selling the next day, like immediately. I was like, shit, this is great. All right, first time ever, we're getting some sales. And that was kind of the shift, really. It was realizing that we were not prepared or financially capable of actually launching a competitive product. So we had the metrics were virtually the same. The product metrics were about the same. The biggest difference is I'm not having to compete with a bunch of people. And I think a lot of people, especially now, they overlook that. They look at the numbers, say, man, this product can, do 100K a month or $1 million a month. And it's like, you can't afford to spend 200 grand to launch this product. Why would you go after that? Yeah. But we made that very same mistake early on as well. So, but I think to answer your question, that's really the biggest shift there is getting out of things.
So what happened? You got some momentum there. The pendulum swings. You got a bit of confidence. What was the next stage?
Honestly, just trying to keep up. So obviously cash was tight. So we're having to order more inventory. And I, for the life of me, can't remember why I did it this way. I think going back to that boundaries piece where I was afraid to ask for what I wanted from the supplier. So the supplier, instead of, putting things, in packaging for me and labeling it for me, I just had them ship it to me. And it came in these giant parachute bags and bundles of 10. So we would literally get these, 300-pound parachute bags full of our product, and I would package everything in my kitchen. I would put my label on it. I ordered stickers from Vistaprint to act as my label. I would label everything and then send it off to Amazon. I did this for several months. And so really it was just trying to keep up. And then it got to the point where we started having quality issues. One of the parts on our product, it was a button. It kept breaking off, which is obviously a problem. It becomes worthless at that point. So I got lucky. And this has happened several times actually that I've gotten lucky this way, but a random manufacturer emailed me, said, hey, my name's Jason and I make, the products that you make or that you sell or whatever. Would you like us to send you a sample? And I was like, yes, because I literally can't keep doing what I'm doing. The product quality is crap now. And so that was the first big break. So when we switched to the supplier we still use today, or one of the ones we use today, they could package everything. The quality was significantly better. The fabric wasn't even the same. So it was the first time we shifted from being this like ragtag, operation. I literally had my mom coming over helping me. I had friends coming over helping me, package everything up. Because at this time we were selling, anywhere from 10 to 30 units a day, and we were fulfilling by merchant as well. So we were shipping to Amazon as FBA and also fulfilling by merchant. So it was just trying to play catch up there. But once we found this new supplier, we were able to actually have them print the labels, because of course he asked me if I wanted them to. I'm like, yes, please do that. And so dumb, like thinking back, but it was just something I hadn't wrapped my head around at the time. So that was really the first big break. Once that happened, our sales started going through the roof. Going through the roof.
What year were we in now? We went from 13, 14, you around 15 now, right?
Yeah, 2015. Actually, yeah, I think our first sale was like June 12th. 2015, ended up realizing this was going to stick. So I, incorporated on July 1st, the following month. And then we ran the rest of the year with that one product, and then went for product number 2 at the start of 2016, I believe, which was a total failure.
Walk me through 16 then. So 15, 13, 14 was the finding your feet, having a bit of a nightmare with cases and stuff. 15 seems to be more of the turning point. Where did we go in 16?
So in 2016, it was still a lot of learning, right? So you get this confidence, and with the first product, we had a bunch of variations. I think we ended up with 15 variations. At the time, we launched them all separately. So they weren't actually parent-child listings. They were all their own deal, because again, there's no competition in that niche. So it was easy to rank on page 1 for multiple products. And so those were doing well. And I was like, sweet. The supplier said he's got this other product that seems to check out as well. I didn't even get a sample, first strike. Ordered it without getting a sample because he sent me photos. I was like, it's great. Realized that as soon as we got it, it was complete trash. It didn't work. And we ended up having to discontinue that product as soon as we launched it. So it was a big mistake there. But so it's kind of a kick in the nuts. Like, hey, quit being so cocky. You had one success. That's not an indicator you're going to continue to do so. So we ended up coming out, I think, with 2 or 3 other SKUs or not SKUs, but product lines in 2016. And that really pushed us. I think in 2016, we did about 500K that year. And
but we really, at that point, you're still not taking a wage. Channing's still
right
beavering away in the hairdressers or the salon. Yeah.
I think at the end of 2016, because it was about a year later, we did take a chunk out. I think it was like $8,000. I think I took like $8,000 out of the business, which I'm pretty certain I ended up putting back in when I needed more inventory. So that didn't work out. But in 2017 is when I could actually take a livable wage, if you will. And it was roughly a year after we incorporated. So I guess it wasn't 2017. It would have had to have been in late 2016. Yeah. And I'll never forget, because the first time, I just took a distribution. I had a check written to myself. I went to the bank and they wouldn't let me deposit it. They wanted to know where it came from, why it was for so much money. And I had to fill out this whole survey. And it was kind of funny, and it's comical now. Just thinking back we went from making $0 to I had a check for more than I used to make an entire year. Just all due to finding some, sort of success.
Yeah, because of embezzlement and stuff like that, they have to do their background checks. You can't you got no history of the bank. You walk in with a super large check and they're like, what's this?
Yeah. But that was definitely unexpected though. So
how did that feel though, walking around with that big fat check though?
It was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. It was really cool.
Not from a cocky point of view, but you felt it means something because you've made that step. You've gone through them times when you've hit your losses, couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo, if you like. But now you've got a big check and ready to go. So roll into 2017.
Yeah. So about this time is when I started getting help. So my best friend, actually, his name's Brian. He still works for me now. He was in the military, and at some point in 2016, he ended up getting out, and he started working, or he went to college, he went to business school. And then I think before school, he was actually helping me fulfill orders. So he'd come in randomly twice a week and then fulfill orders. And long story short, he eventually graduates and he ends up coming on more full time, especially during the summer months. He'd already taken on more hours. Like, it's very capable, and he's got a business degree. Like, I don't actually know what I'm doing. I don't really know how to run a company. I'm just trying to sell shit, right? And so I brought him on, and I think I did bring him on in just a part-time capacity at the time, but it was me and him for the next year. Me and Brian basically just kept trying to launch more products and keep sales running. And so I think that next year we went from 500K in 2016 to around 1.2 million or something like that, 1.2 million in 2016. 2017. And then 2018, doubled again. 2019 doubled again. And we should get close again in 2020. So I know we totally jumped like 3 years there. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
no. We'll go back for the 3 years. But you're on for 8 figures this year. Is that what you're saying, or close?
We're gonna get close. Honestly, everything that's been lining up here recently, I'm not sure we're even going to have enough inventory to survive the onslaught of sales that are coming. Just with Prime Day coming up in October, then you have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, then you have Q4 increases. It's like I can't get Amazon to just accept my shipment. How in the world am I going to get things going? So we do have contingencies, right? We're using 3PLs. We're doing all the things, but it's really annoying that we can't. I always want to push harder and I want to move faster. And when I'm forced not to, it's really infuriating. So I don't mean to sound like I'm complaining. Very grateful. But
no, what you're trying to do is just keep building and moving things forward. And most entrepreneurs are impatient. They want to get shit done. That's why they're entrepreneurs. They don't want all the bureaucracy and sitting in meetings and offices. They want to get shit done. Key points of 18. I know we jumped forward. Let's go through 18. Give us some standout moments.
2018, learned out I'm not good at hiring, so started bringing on more people. And it was 2018. Yeah. So the big thing for 2018. So it was the first time I went to China. So I had not been to China. I didn't even want to go to China. We ended up meeting Athena at, I can't remember whose event that was. It was an event, I think, in California or Austin, one or the other. They're similar, right? And I ended up meeting Athena. Channing hit it off with Athena, and she walks up to me with Athena at the end of this event. She's like, "Hey, you guys are going to China." And I was like, "The fuck we are. We aren't going to China." Like, pardon my language, but
no, you can swear on this, the podcast. Fuck it. Yeah.
So needless to say, we ended up deciding we were going to go. So it was China Magic, right? The name of her trip. And we ended up getting every single product we currently manufactured at the time. I think we had around 10 different product lines. I think around 40 to 50 SKUs total. We ended up finding everything cheaper, and we ended up negotiating with our existing manufacturers, negotiating those prices down. So the trip paid for itself immediately. We didn't have to switch manufacturers. And so this beautiful thing happened. I ended up meeting, some amazing people on that trip. Other key insights too, like we constantly ran out of stock, and it finally took someone who was actually doing 8 figures at the time, on like a global scale operation, to tell me, like, dude, you're bitching about, having to spend this much in storage fees, or, having too much inventory on hand, but it's actually costing you more money when you run out of stock than it is ever going to for you to pay these long-term storage fees or whatever it is you're afraid of. And, all this happened in 2018. We had, this big win with, the pricing of our inventory, which apparently was way overpriced. And then, just the logistics behind everything became significantly easier. We hired a sourcing agent as well, which was a huge load taken off of my shoulders. I don't think a lot of people realize like how much time and energy you put into talking with your manufacturers, especially when you have more than one, maintaining those relationships and, negotiating essentially on your company's behalf. And when we hired the sourcing agent, I was able to offload all of the logistics, all of the supply chain management, and all I had to do was have regular conversations with my suppliers. Things started to get so much easier. I had bandwidth to actually think about how the hell are we going to, take this thing to the next level, instead of staying up all night, talking about new products and what I don't like about the sample, blah, blah, blah. So 2018 was a big pivotal year for that reason. I think those are pretty much the highlights for 2018. 2019, really, it was the first year we got to really scale beyond the initial 7-figure mark. So
for the scaling, Mark, what was the pivotal point for the scaling? Like newfound knowledge, increased confidence, or was there something that you felt you were missing and you go, okay, this is what we're going to do? So walk me through your concept of, right, we're going to scale.
So this is probably I would say, aside from just starting, making the switch from, 7 to actually try to get to 8 figures, between that $1 and $3 million range is definitely the hardest thing to do personally. I think for me anyways, I had all the knowledge. I started this company myself. I was doing everything. I touched everything, and everything moved when I told it to move. And when you make the switch from doing everything yourself, you have team members, you have people that are supposed to help you, but you go to conferences every other month or something, you come back, tell your team, hey guys, screw everything we've been working on, let's go work on this. So 2019 was very hard. I was completely overwhelmed because I still touched everything. Every product launch went through me. Every product design went through me. PPC, everything. I was doing all of the main components with the help of my team, but they still couldn't move without me having them move because I wouldn't allow them to. I kept all the knowledge to myself. And so in 2019, I ended up completely by accident, actually. Devin DeRoche, I don't know if you know him or not. he calls me up one day and says, "Hey, dude, I'm gonna be driving through Dallas. Wanted to see, if you're gonna be home or whatever, and we'll hang out." And I was like, "Sure. What are you coming down here for?" He's going to this conference in Austin called the Billionaire Code Summit, and I was like, "Well, shit, I'll just go with you. I like conferences." And so I ended up going to this. I had no idea who Alex Sharfin was, and turns out he's not an Amazon guy. It's not even on his radar. As far as like what he coaches, he teaches people how to build teams and how to create these plans so that you can grow your business. And I ended up going to this event, and for the very first time that year, this was in September of 2019. So the very first time that year, I finally saw the light of how the hell I get out of full overwhelm. At that time, I was very frustrated with how things were going. I wanted to move faster, but I really struggled with how to delegate, not tasks, but success to people. So I could never actually tell someone, "Hey, go get this result." I'd have to tell them what to do because I wouldn't tell them all the information, essentially. And it took that event, and I ended up signing up for his coaching. I've been in it for 2 years now. It was the first time I realized that if I really want to grow and I really want to scale, I'm going to have to start letting go.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. It took a year to actually change my thinking around that. But in 2019,
you're enabling them, and then you get out of their way.
Essentially. And unfortunately, it resulted in having to let go of some people, just kind of the way things worked out. What Alex coaches, it's a lot of transparency. It's a lot of vulnerability on my part, especially. Like I essentially have to tell, my team when I'm not okay and why. And that's uncomfortable for me. Again, I don't like boundaries. I don't want to feel like I'm being taken advantage of. So I don't even want to talk about these things half the time. And so it really changed the way we ran the company. And as a result, moving into 2020, one of our goals was to get me out of delivery. So no longer being part of the day-to-day operations. So that's been the big goal for me anyways for 2020. And it took about 6 months, 3 to 6 months, and that was possible. But the only way that shift was ever made, right? So, we went from like 2.something million, 2.2, something like that in 2018 in revenue. We did 4.5 in 2019. And now we've done more than that this year already. And I'm no longer even working in the business on a day-to-day basis. So
top down, can you just walk us through a little bit of the overall structure that you've got in place?
Sure. So I've always wanted to have as few people as possible, right? I actually started this company, or not, I say I started this company. I ran this company with the intention that if I could use tools, I would before I hired people, which is why I struggled so much in 2019 because it requires people. So now we have 4 team members, including myself. So 4 actual employees that are on payroll. And then we have another 4 contractors, which contractors include our Ppc Manager, our sourcing agent, a photographer, and there's one more. I think
sorry, mate, we didn't forget you. We'll remember soon. Yeah.
Right. There's technically 2 more, but we use them irregularly. So I don't consider them part of the team, but those core 4 are the ones we do pay on a regular basis. I actually think we stopped using the 4th one. I think that was, she was creating all of our SOPs for it, but we no longer use her. So, so 4 team members, and the 4 core people are really the ones who run the company, right? So there's myself, which I'm kind of out of it now. But Brian, who operates essentially as the operations manager, the COO, he makes sure all the ducks are lined up and everything's running smoothly. He controls the product launches, and he's actually learned also how to develop products as well, which is the last thing that I really struggled delegating to somebody else.
It's tough. That's probably the most important role within the business, is handing product development over.
Exactly. And honestly, he does a better job than I do, because I didn't actually like doing it. So it was really hard for me to be interested in it, but he excels with it. We actually now have over 50, I think, products in development ready to go. All we need to do is order them. And that was his doing over the past, 3 to 4 months, I guess, at this point. So he runs product launches, product development primarily. And then we have 2 other employees. The one, customer service, social media. So pretty much everything related to that. So including ManyChat. So all of our launches that go through ManyChat or whatever, she handles those pieces. And she's actually learned how to create the ManyChat flows herself, which has been a huge win as well. And then the last one, she was my executive assistant, but now that I'm no longer doing day-to-day tasks, it kind of defeats the purpose. So we've actually just shifted her role into, we'd call them operators. So Alex Sharfin, everyone's, they're just an operator, right? So she actually handles a great mini task. So it's a bunch of random stuff, a lot of administrative stuff. She runs all of our meetings. She makes sure everyone's on, the right path, and she deals with our sourcing agent, make sure our supply chain's all, tidied up. So we have a very small team, I think, compared to many, but it seems to work. So that's what we've got there. And the only other team member besides the sourcing agent that really pulls a lot of weight is our PPC manager. So again, like I said earlier, when that manufacturer emailed me and I got lucky, same thing happened with this PPC manager. Lady just messaged me on Facebook out of the blue, says, hey, I run, PPC or something like that. I'd love to be able to look at your account and give you a proposal. And that was the first way I've ever heard that explained. Like, let me give you a proposal as opposed to, hey, let me run your shit. So I was like, okay, give her a try, because we'd been working with another company and they took our ACOS from like 35%, brought it up to 90%, and just thoroughly screwed things up. It was awful. And I was taking PPC back over at this point. So I was like, I don't want to do this. So I ended up giving her access to our search term report and also our PPC page, so she could view everything and give me a proposal. And she ends up delivering me like a 12-page report of all the things she would change and why. And I've been running, the campaigns myself, so I know what's going on. And everything that she said, I was like, I think there was only one thing I disagreed with, but everything else was spot on. And I was like, cool, how much do you charge? And it worked out really well. She's been with us most of the year now, more than 6 months, I think, not quite a year. And she's been great. She manages things exceptionally well. She gets along with the team, and she doesn't even speak English as a first language, which blows me away. So that was a huge win in 2020, along with me just getting out of the day-to-day operations.
So let's talk the future. Any plans for an exit? Take some legacy money off the table?
Yes. Can't say exactly when, but that is in the cards. So we're just kind of waiting till the time is right, essentially.
Yeah, cool.
It's been tough because I've gone back and forth. A lot of the companies that I was aware of when I was younger, they were companies you kept forever. And I think with this type of business, it's a cash flow business. So it's not really meant to be kept forever. At least that's how I feel about it now. So I do want to exit at some point. I just don't know exactly when that will be. But it's definitely been on my mind. And it's something that for anyone else who's, looking to sell their business, like, you need to start at least a solid year before you even consider it, because it's going to take that long just to get everything ready. So yeah.
How would you like to be remembered?
Oh man. I don't know. Well, I want to be remembered well. No, honestly, I like to help people. So I do coaching and stuff as well with Athena and the Titan Network. So I'd like to, honestly, I just want to be remembered as having contributed, right? Like, I think it's so important, especially in today's day and age, when everyone's bitching and moaning about who's in office, who's not in office, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. Like, dude, you have the power within yourself to contribute in your own way. And that, I think, if I want remembered as anything besides, being a good husband and father, I want to be remembered as having contributed and made a difference. Even if it's on a small scale, I don't need to go start, a civil rights movement or anything, but I want to be remembered as someone who impacted people's lives in a positive way, as opposed to I just complained a lot and posted a bunch of really nasty memes on Facebook like everybody else. So I don't know. I guess that would probably be it if I could summarize.
That's a great answer. Who wouldn't want to? Legacy or money?
I feel like they go hand in hand, to be honest. It's kind of hard to have legacy without money, at least. So the way it's been described to me, you shouldn't even focus on your legacy. until you've taken care of everything else first,
Yeah.
which requires money. So and the reason I guess I'll share. So Alex Sharfin, my coach, he basically says a lot of entrepreneurs start out, they want to make an impact, they want to make a contribution, and they try to do it with, trying to build this legacy. Like, I'm going to go start this charity, I'm going to go start, this nonprofit to do X, Y, Z. But as if like you're a true entrepreneur, you're going to be awful at running a charity or a nonprofit.
Oh.
You're geared towards making money. So make money first, and then use that to fund your own charity. Don't go out asking people to give you money. Build the business yourself. Do what you already are geared and hardwired to do, and then go make that legacy contribution later on whenever you actually can fund it yourself without having to, get a bunch of donors. Which, don't get me wrong, you probably still go do the whole donor thing. But if you really think about it and you look at how many, charities and other organizations that are out there making these giant impacts, very few of them are started by people who had nothing. There's a few, don't get me wrong. I know several that I fully support, but it's a lot harder. And if, as an entrepreneur, it's really hard to go out and make a contribution that way, as opposed to starting a company, providing jobs to people, making a difference in the world that way. And then that legacy piece will follow. So that's the way I think about it. But they do go hand in hand in my mind.
That's your in depth. How'd you feel?
Sorry, you broke up. What'd you say?
I said that's your in depth. We've wrapped it. That's quite a story.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Let me get to the comments there. We've got a load here. Let's get them up on the screen. Sorry. Justin is an absolute rock star. Hi, Danny and Justin. Chilling in Cyprus, but still done time to tune in. Justin, Owen has been tuning in all the way since March from the COVID
Awesome.
run of podcasts and stuff, or lives that we've been doing. He's based in the UK, but it's nice to see him on holiday. I'm sure his wife would be over the moon. Yelchin says, hi, gent. Nice to see you all. You guys are too quickly to marry. Talking about, I didn't get married at 19, but I met my wife at 19. But yeah, we were very young. Mark says, hey, J-Man. Sanjay says, hi, guys. Facebook user says, thank you. I think that's Chen there. Sandeep, you're blessed to have such a partner. Ruth says, oh, thanks, Mark, for sharing. But yay, go Justin here. Rhea says, congrats, Justin. Impressive. Kat's laughing her ass off on the smiley emoji. Sorry. Athena says it was Ezra's event in Austin.
Yep. All right, there you go.
Kat says, we decided, he says, and then whipped hashtag. I think she was referring to going to China. And then some said, Facebook users said, there's some meta level thinking right there. This man seems smarter than he looks for sure. I don't think that's too kind. He's a good looking fucker, this guy. Cat Phip says, Andrew Exon says, all I want to be is Justin when we grow up. Dan says, yes, Justin, fire emojis. Matt says, I admire Justin's honesty and openness almost as much as I Mary's immaculate hair. I have seen the pictures with the mane. I've seen them.
Oh, man.
What we got here? Lots of small details to run Amazon business. Great pieces of information, which mostly we learn whilst doing mistakes. Thank you. Justin is an absolute legend. Brian says your mama is watching. Hello, mum. Right, we're going to sign off here. It's just coming up the top of the hour. Congratulations. Give my love to Chen. You've got a keeper there. Well done with everything. Really proud of what you guys are achieving. Looking forward to seeing you all post-COVID. Guys are going to sign off. Have a safe time. I think we're going to move into some sort of a reduced kind of lockdown here from next week. I'll be back here Monday to Thursday again. Enjoy your weekend. Stay out of trouble, you crazy kids. See you soon.
Bye, guys.